All right, it's top of the hour. A very good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to bring to you this webinar on enabling business success through people transformation by Shrm in partnership with Hono. I'm Nitya Vijay Kumar from the Knowledge and Advisory Services at Shrm and your host for the day. Audience, please note that this session is coming to you as a webcast and hence we've disabled the audio and video. However, this should not deter you from asking your questions through chat. And as your host, I will get as many answered by the panel for you as possible. We stand on the brink of a revolution that is fundamentally altering the way we live, work, and relate to one another. The scale, scope, and complexity of this transformation is unlike what we have experienced ever before, blurring the already thin lines between the physical, digital, and biological spheres. In response, organizations are looking at deep transformation in terms of business models, client centricity, agility, digitalization, and much more. While all these transformations are being driven by business needs, research has proved that their success depends on the people behind them. Transformations can only work when the people are given wide-ranging support. Also, studies have shown that organizations cannot change until their people change. Most transformations efforts fail here because organizations overemphasize on the tangible side of change and underemphasize the emotional one. Taking a cue on some interesting reads like the disruption mindset states that organizations change works when you identify the key beliefs and behaviors you want to change and then create a new supporting structure, process, and governance mechanism, and not the other way around. Putting people first is clearly the link between strategy design and delivery. People turn ideas into reality, and they are the strategy in motion. They are the organization's most important source of competitive advantage, and yet, paradoxically, they are most often also organizations' least leveraged asset. At the helm of handholding this strategic resource for their organizations and creating the right environment to nurture and enable them to reach their true potential is our esteemed panel for today. It gives me great pleasure to invite Mr. Amit Sharma, CHRO, Volvo Group India, Mr. Sudeep Luthra, Head HR, Orange Business Services, Mr. Rajesh Padmanabhan, Managing Director, the Expo Group and Chairman, Hono.ai, and Mr. Randeep Singh, Chief Operating Officer, Hono.ai. A very warm welcome to all of you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Lovely. So once again, audience, a very warm welcome to all of you. And I'd like to reiterate that please feel free to share your thoughts, inputs, questions to the panel on chat. We're having a close eye on the chat and we'll be happy to involve you in this discussion as much as possible through chat. All right, Sudeep, let me jump to you first and try and understand that, business success is often the right balance between prioritizing people transformation and organizational outcomes. So what are some of the ways that organizations can achieve this?
Thanks, Nitya. First of all, very, very interesting question and very relevant to today's times. We have seen a lot of disruption in last 2 years due to COVID, and the way we do business, it has totally undergone a big transformation. And people transformation becomes much more important now because people have to change with the changing times. And today, I would say people transformation is one of the key elements for business success because we are living in a VUCA world. Now, when we talk of transformation, there are a couple of things that come to my mind. First of all is that transformation is to unlock some new opportunities, or it is to drive a growth, drive growth for the organization, or maybe to deliver new efficiencies. So we need to build models which will actually deliver new efficiencies because our macro environment has changed. And now, when we talk of transformation, to me, it should happen when everything is going normal. That means as a business organization, we should not be reactive. We should not do a reactive transformation. It should be a very proactive transformation. And this transformation should be planned by leaders much in advance when the business is operating at an optimal level. Now, it is a question of how you foresee Some changes are abrupt. Definitely COVID was an abrupt change, but a lot of times we can actually foresee, and as leaders maybe we need to foresee what others cannot foresee. So that is going to help us to prepare for this transformation. Now, how it should happen? So the preparation should happen much in advance, where there is a buy-in from the top leadership. So the leadership behaviors are going to drive the transformation, and we need to have the buy-in from the influencers. So every organization would have certain number of influencers, and definitely the leaders. So leaders need to be prepared, the influencers need to be prepared, and then we should actually strategize how we are going to put the transformation strategy in action. Now, what should be covered under transformation? So definitely it is the technology solutions. So for any organization today, whether it's into manufacturing or into services or any other sector, technology is the key element. And we need to have a focus on the technology solutions that any organization is using. So that has to undergo a little bit of transformation. We need to also look at, in order to achieve efficiencies, what are the processes or tools that we have. So process and tools also need to undergo transformation. The kind of infrastructure that we have, that needs to undergo transformation. But when we are transforming our processes, our tools, our infrastructure, we need people transformation as well, because ultimately people are going to either run these processes and tools, or they are going to be impacted because of this process and tools. So people transformation becomes very, very important. And when we talk of people transformation, I think first thing that comes to my mind is a skill set. So we need to actually foresee what's the skill set that is required by the organization in future, where we are today. So if we are operating in a certain way, if I have to move from point A to point B, how fast I need to move my people's skill set from where they are, from where we want them to be, because people are going to drive this transformation. So improving and working on people's skill set for tomorrow, I think that's very, very important. And transformation is not, I mean, the way I look at it is not something which is like a continual improvement. So continual improvement would happen maybe in little more slow manner, but transformation, when we talk of, to me, it is something which happens much at faster rate. It's a planned intervention, and it has to happen at a faster rate, and there people need to play a very, very crucial role. And also I would like to link this with the cultural aspect of it. So we need to build a culture where the changes are not resisted. So when we talk of transformation, again, there is going to be change, and we need to build that culture. We need to communicate the value of transformation. So I think communication is going to be very, very important, that we just start transforming, that's not going to serve the purpose. We need to tell people that why we are transforming, how we are going to transform, and how people are going to be impacted because of this transformation. And also make it very clear that how people are going to contribute into this transformation journey, and then what's in it for me. What do our employees, our team members gain out of it? So I think these are some of the areas where we need to work upon. And definitely to implement, we should have a co-construction approach, a more transversal approach when we talk of people transformation, organizational transformation, rather than just a top-down approach. Because unless everybody is involved, so it has to be a movement within the organization. It cannot be just imposed on somebody that okay, you have to transform. It has to come from within. So everybody in the organization should see that value, that yes, we are transforming because maybe there is a change in the business environment, maybe there's a disruptive competition which has come up, or there's some change in the government regulations. So this could happen because of various reasons.
Yeah.
Maybe my scale and size of business has undergone a huge change. Earlier I was a 5,000 people company, but today maybe I am a 20,000 people company, and my geographical reach has changed. So there could be various reasons. So we need to have definitely people's involvement, and this has to come with a lot of trust and maybe empowerment to the people. So that's my little take on this question. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudeep, so much. You touched upon a few very interesting aspects. So the first point that you made, you talked very beautifully about planning in advance. I think transformations, you need to be proactive about this, and you need to anticipate much in advance before it actually hits you, and that's when it can be most effective. Thank you so much for bringing that out. And also you spoke about how culture and very clearly communicating what is in it for the people to stay invested in this transformational journey is going to be the key. Great. Let me now invite Amit. Amit, your thoughts on this, please.
So, apart from what Sudeep just talked about, and all of them pretty relevant points, the larger intent, if I look at, when we say balancing priorities, people transformation, organizational outcomes, in my view, there is nothing to balance between the two. It's very simple. It's people transformation will lead to your organizational outcome. It's a cause and effect entire process. It's one leads to another. I can't expect an organization to change if I'm not having my people to change in terms of their ways of working, behavior, or mannerisms or whatever. So for me, there's nothing to balance between the two. I think it's about taking this is a critical step towards it. So for that, the one of the fundamental things, according to me, is there a common purpose in this transformation? At an organization level, is there a larger horizon which everybody is chasing, which is the purpose? And if that is aligned and we are able to create that alignment in the people, the organizational outcomes will automatically start to happen, because then people know where we are going. Many times what happens in large organizations, people are doing things within their own silos or within their own functions without really having the larger picture towards what is the magnet they are chasing, what is the larger picture around the horizon. So that's, to me, is the point number one in terms of this process. Second piece is very critical about continue to focus on what your really values are at an organization level. If you have defined certain values, and those values have to be linked to what as a business you want to achieve. See, there's nothing right or wrong about values. Sometimes organizations put some very nice fancy words out there, but sometimes they're in complete conflict with what your daily behaviors are, or what you really manifest it on the ground. So that is very important, that if you want, let's say, an organization, speed is the key value, focus on that. Then your people processes also need to be focused on that. And if some organization consensus is a value, that will do things which is uh, with alignment of everybody, will not go solo, then it means the speed will get compromised. Then call it out, and that's perfectly fine. So be very clear, what organizational outcome you are trying to achieve, and then what values are in alignment with that, and then start inculcating that in the people. Then people will also see a congruence, and they will also see the larger purpose of alignment around it. The third piece I would say is, very clearly, when we're looking at it, identify what are the behaviors which are required to achieve the business outcome. One is the values which you really display, and second is also the daily behaviors. Now that's again equally important. For example, if there's a behavior which is about being biased for action, uh, you know then call it out. But in some cases, it may be, let's have a more thoughtful plan of action. There will be two different sides of the spectrum. So what behaviors are you trying to inculcate in the employees, create that, and then start working towards it. So the outcome has to define the behaviors, and those behaviors are then are supposed to be but transmitted, and people are supposed to really exhibit in the organization. Then create those right reinforcement mechanisms around it, saying that is it really happening, not happening? If it's happening, how do you really further reinforce it? And if it's not happening, are you giving power to everyone to call it out and say, hey, here things are not happening in line with what behaviors which we have set, and we need to do something to do about it. And this has to be, that empowerment has to be all across the organization. You just can't leave it to the leaders to do it. It can even be from a peer to a manager. Hey, Mr. Boss, this is something which is not in line with what we are articulating. And the last piece I would say is, as a leader, you need to walk the talk. Without that, things really don't work. I can put hundreds of things in terms of the people transformation. If I am not myself as a leader following that, and the people will very clearly call out the bluff and say, hey, maybe we are not serious about it. So those are the things which I would say very clearly. Again, I'll reiterate, it's not balancing. It's one which leads to another. And we need to really focus on what kind of behaviors and what kind of transformation we need in the people based on what is required by the business. And then it first goes back and then goes front. That's the way, to me, it works.
Great. Thank you so much, Amit. And what you beautifully mentioned, cause and effect is truly what it is, and really being able to communicate the purpose and also to show them the way to do it is what it is. I mean, clearly defining, identifying those behaviors, calling out a daily discipline. So these are the ones that will actually translate into actual actions on ground. Great, thank you so much for that. And on that note, let me move to Randeep. Randeep, what factors do you think should organizations keep in perspective before identifying the right technological solutions for adoptions, so as to ensure business success? Because we've clearly called out that technology is the way to go about this. Sorry, Randeep, you're still talking on mute.
Sorry, is it audible now? Okay.
Yes, you are. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you so much for this question, Nitya. In fact, just building on what Amit and Sudeep shared. In fact, listening organizations will not need this merger of what top down or a bottom up approaches. In fact, transformations are built bottoms up. Of course, nowadays, what of course RP is also going to talk about is, it's not the top or the bottom, it's somewhere middle where the transformation really happens, and you drive that. So just building onto that, the question that you've asked me, is very potent question. That of course every organization that embarks on transformation, have to answer mandatorily. I think the first point, so it's a, for me, it's a 5 or a 6 point agenda that one needs to drive. When you have to look at factors which needs to be kept in mind while you identify the right technology solution. I think the first biggest factor that I've always propagated with my clients, with the kind of industry segments, diverse segments that we're working with is, have we identified the right problem that we're trying to solve? I think that's the biggest factor, right? So which could be your strategy, it could reflect on your processes, it could reflect on anything that is inward out. So that's the first thing. If you're solving the wrong problem, you are definitely going to go wrong in technology. That's the first consideration I think that we need to put. Now that calls for leadership to get together, or the entire organization to put their thoughts through, is something that the organization needs to consider. That's my first point. The second point, of course, is do we have the backup to be leading this transformation? Now the backup could be teams, backup could be processes, it could be talent, it could be anything that could help us embrace the change or transformation. So for me, are we prepared to take on this transformation? Of course, that comes through communication, that comes through very good clear thought that the management actually percolates down and bottoms up. Everything is so resonant in the organization that you're ready for that change, right? So for me, that's the second point that one needs to consider before you even adopt or look at any technology solution that you would want to get into. Also, from a technology perspective and from a thought perspective, are we future ready? So do you want technology just to be a project? Or do you want technology to be a value system in the organization? That makes a difference, right? Because you have to look at both these axes when you're plotting your transformation journey for an organization. So are we there in terms of taking technology or the transformation to the value system of the organization? Because, projects roll in and they roll out. Okay, so that's how it is in the organization. But transformations, once in, stay with the organizations, right? And they decide the future. So for me, I think that's the critical factor, which is, are we future ready in terms of our thought and also in terms of the technology that we're trying to adopt? That's point number 3. Also, of course, coming on to the numbers of technology, are we really clear about the total cost of ownership of technology, both from softer side and harder side? Have we done the cost benefit analysis? Have we put our numbers in place? Do we have the right stakeholders, who are sponsoring this transformation or technology adoption in the organization? Is something that clearly defines business success. Because till the time you're not engaged, you're not sponsoring, technology just becomes a pocket, where you will try to build some excellence center, which just fizzles out, right? So that's the third or fourth point for me. Also, we almost take the industry or competitor analysis for granted. I think we need to do our research right there. What is my industry segment actually adopting to? Of course, that should not be the benchmark. But what is it that is the trend that is setting in the organization or in the industry? Or of course, the practices that are being set in the market. I think that really defines the real perspective that the organization needs to take in identifying the technology solution. Also, I believe user experience, because technology and transformation brings in a lot of feedback that comes from the users who will adopt to that technology, right? So first is adoption, second is adoption of technology, right? So are we keeping user experience in mind? Are we future ready in terms of, taking, and we are going to talk about, disruptive technologies, AI, ML, deep learning, and so on and so forth. But are we really keeping that user in mind, who could be the personas which could be diverse, right? Because we are dealing at least with 3 to 4 generations in our work culture. How do we blend that, right? And how do we fizzle, or how do we transition that out in terms of, adopting a technology? And, finally, of course, the partner that you choose to implement technology, very important. What's the competitiveness level? How do you look at the strengths that the partner brings in while you're actually adapting a technology or, buying a technology? And you're clear that this partner is going to take you through the entire transformation journey, not just leave you, in between. So that is something that's very important for me. I mean, top of the mind, these points, which I can think of, but of course, onto the panel, of course, if they would want to add on to what my thought is. Yeah. So that's pretty much from my side, Nitya.
Thank you, Randeep. Some very, very interesting points there that you brought up. Let me hop to Amit to understand. Randeep mentioned about clearly trying to understand whether we are ready for this transformation, clearly calling out the cost benefit analysis, clearly having the right leadership support. In such a dynamic environment, there are so many things that are changing day in and day out. Do you really think when an organization steps into a transformational journey, it's really easy to call out all of these aspects? As you're leading one global organization. So tell me from your experience, do you really think that's possible, or would you want to call out the top 3-4 things that baki sab dekha jayega, but let's at least have this right in our when we move ahead?
No. It's difficult, and there is never a good time to start a transformation, I can tell you, because when things are going good, the reason is, why do we need a transformation? Everything is going good. When you're in bad times, you'll say, okay, things are not good at this point of time. Let's not disrupt anything. Let's kind of tide over this crisis. And when things will stabilize, then we'll do it. So you'll keep on getting into it. But the points which Randeep raised are very, very critical, that you really need to call out the need. I think one of the first and foremost things in which I would say is, what is the need you are trying to solve, or what is the burning platform? Where is the issue? Otherwise, what will happen is, it will come as a fad, be there for some time, and after that people will stop using it because there was never need for it. And I've seen many organizations where we have brought in technology thinking that there is a need, but when we went into it, when we didn't see people really hooking on to it, realized that probably that need was more we thought is the need. I'll give you an example. In one of and this is my personal, I would call it a failure in a way. We launched an internal collaboration tool, like a Facebook kind of a tool in one of my previous organizations. We said, okay, well, let's have an internal a platform where people will interact with each other, collaborate with each other, share good moments, happy moments, stories, all of that. This why? Because it will help in collaboration, bring people together, and it's good for the larger culture building.
Yeah.
After a year and a half, we had to really, drop it and say, okay, we are not renewing it, because the usage of that tool was hardly about 8 to 9%, and in spite of our best efforts. And we realized that probably people didn't need it. Was organization thought it's the need because we wanted more collaboration, and we thought this is the way it will work. Whereas when it comes to people, they felt that they are anyways having other means to come and interact with each other. So it's not really was the solution. So I think it's very, very important to understand that what is the real need in the organization to do it. Without that, anything will not work. The second important piece is where you are. What's the larger culture in the organization? Again, I come back to one of my previous experiences in one of the companies we implement. I remember when we moved to emails for the first time. we still had certain senior people who will still ask their assistant to take a printout and put it in the input tray and say, okay, this is my mails for the day, and what is that you need to do? Because the culture was still very paper driven. So even if you send communication by mail, it was not really accepted. Rather, sometimes there were communication which was sent by mail, and then there was a fax used to happen later on. Because the fax was considered more authentic because it had signatures rather than an email communication. So again, from a culture standpoint, you need to think where you are in the organization around it. Without that, things will really not work.
Yeah.
The third important piece is the middle management, and Randeep talked about it, is the key here. We kind of conceptualize things at a senior leadership level. We strategize at the senior leadership level, but where it really touches the employee is through the middle management. If that layer is really glued onto it and really understanding what you really need to do and championing that technology transformation, things will get cascaded down. If that layer will be cynical and say, oh, maybe this is another thing which is coming up, but let's continue with our internal processes the way we are doing within my team, you will never have that transformation or the digital transformation or the technology solution really getting cascaded. And the last piece which I would say is about, what are your internal workflows? Are you willing to change the internal workflows or not due to technology? To give another example, in one of my experiences, we had this huge headcount requisition process. So any hiring, you need to go till the level of the global business head to take a sign off. And when we implemented that technology, it was a grandparent principle. A manager will do it, it will go to the manager's manager, and if that manager signs off, as the technology tool, that was it. We said we are empowering. But what happened was the two systems got created. There will be an offline process which will go all the way to the business side. It will get signed up from there. It will come back, and then this manager will raise a rec there, and then it will go to the grandparent and will get approval. Then what's the point of having the technology? Because it's not really suiting either you change that way of working or put the workflow there. So understanding that what is your internal systems, are you willing to make that change or not, is very critical. Otherwise, things just don't work it out. So that has been my experience around it. That when you really look at the solutions, what are some of the do's and don'ts you really need to take care of internally to really make it effective?
Thank you so much, Amit and Randeep. We've built on some beautiful examples from what Randeep also mentioned. Thank you so much for that. Yes, Sudeep, very quickly, any thoughts here, please? Yeah.
Just to add, I was listening with great interest what Amit just said. So in my opinion, transformation should bring in value for the customer and for the employees. And also it should create, simple processes and reduce time taken and create efficiency. So if you have efficiency out of it and simplicity out of it, it would be successful. But if it creates more complexity either for employees or for customers, there would be challenge in bringing about the transformation.
Absolutely. So keeping things simple is what should be the mantra as we start exploring solutions in this transformational journey. Let me move to Rajesh. Rajesh, you have worked with multiple organizations, and in your experience, how can data analytics be used to support and guide this people transformation process?
Thank you, Nitya. Listened with a lot of interest, and since there was transformation that was used as 20 times, and that's the theme of it, let me try and bring out what data analytics can really do. I'll start with a little bit of context setting on data analytics because it's sometimes loosely understood in terms of, analysis and analytics.
Right.
First and foremost, I think HR as a function has been immensely qualitative. Qualitative, when I say, I think there's a lot of heart and soul we bring along with the mind to the function. But this is the first time, I guess, there's a lot of demand as far as quantitative aspects of HR is concerned. There's good amount of stuff that we would have created in the last few decades with respect to the art of the job, but now is the time to blend science along with this. Can we get a little predictive? Can we use data which are actually giving a lot of insights to build our foresights for the future, etc., etc. That's the context. So how can we use quant HR is what I'm trying to bring through the aspect of data analytics. And I'm glad we do good amount of work in Hono. I think we're doing a lot of stuff. By no means want to say that we're successful in every single aspect of it, but we are triers. Randeep did allude to the point of how we do AI and the ML part of it. So let me try and bring this to an applicability level so that, we doesn't remain just a technology language, or it doesn't remain a domain language. But let's look at some of the life cycle. I'm not going to touch some of the conventional stuff which AI has already done. So let me get into recruitment part of it. Now, the recruitment part of it, I think the way the sourcing, the screening, and the selection part of it is done, I think a lot of movement has happened already there. But some of the newer stuff that's coming into play, which again will become, if not now, there will be a huge realization which will come in. And that's where the relevance of data analytics. People are demanding, show me the show rates. There's a lot of no-show happening. So you roll out so many offers. Can you, with reasonable amount of predictability, predict what are the kind of show rates that we are going to have? Can you predict good amount of success rates? So we do a lot of external hiring with the belief that these guys are going to settle in and they're going to be a really integral part of the organization. That's the intuition, that's the belief, that's the endeavor. But can you predict it much in advance? Whether these guys, and I remember Amit speaking culture quite a bit in both the questions. So can we do a little bit of success rate with respect to the quality of hire, the cultural blending part of it? Now, this is where science come in. This is where technology with cognitives can really help. So this is one. Let's move to the capabilities part of the organization. Capabilities, fine. I mean, we do have current capabilities, but are we in a state to predict future capabilities? So the predictive capabilities of tomorrow, we do have the skill repository. We do build a huge kind of a warehouse as far as skills and inventories are concerned. But can we reasonably predict what the organization will need? And typically the churn that we see in capabilities, in future capabilities, is as high as 20 to 35% in each industry. That being true, can you silently sit back and not look at predictive capabilities? I'm not saying you get 100% success, but even a 30% success, even a 40% success will set your trajectory right. Move to the third part of it, which I don't think anybody is even talking about it, but which will become a need maybe 5 years from now. But have you even started to think? I'm talking of compensation derivatives through data analytics. What it means is you bring in people and they do their work, you pay them, right? Now the variables are the person, the skill, the role, currency, and eventually the contribution. Yeah, all of this actually are variables which will come usually into play. There will be multi-currency compensation. It's a derivative. I mean, just look at an IPL for an example. We are betting on people to perform for the next few matches, and you actually trade them way ahead. That's exactly what I'm talking the compensation area as well. Again, a very small example, just to leave an impact. People draw out experiences. Who on earth said that you need a 15-year experience guy or a 20-year experience guy or a 25-year experience? There is no science behind it. It's just comfort. If I get an X number of experience, I'm comfortable. Now, if I can challenge that through data analytics to show that a 15-year experience guy can be substituted with a 5-year experience, it's not just to prove a point. The impact is cost. You're liberating a 10-year experience, and that is exactly what is coming into play. So how do you with data analytics, how do you blend productivity and excellence? Let's get to talent. Even in the space of talent, I think talent to value is the question being asked. Show me the talent to value roadmap. These are all hard stuff, yeah, which was never asked. It's being asked now. I'm not saying all the answers are there, but the sooner people start looking at the mirror, the better it gets. Yeah? And predictive attrition is something which possibly I tried and tested it out 10 years back, wrote the code. I fortunately had a lot of business intelligence guys working for me. They were on the bench, did that. But again, these are the need. Nobody is worried about what has already happened. Can you tell me way ahead of time? And can we do something about it? Is the real ask. And organizational outcomes, which I remember Sudeep talking about it quite loudly. I think those are the stuff that we really need to do. So cultural capabilities, contribution with credibility and cost is what is the future, which data analytics can reasonably make an attempt. I leave you with that, Nitya.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rajesh. That was truly insightful and very clearly tying this back to what Sudeep started off this conversation with, very clearly talking about anticipating what is going to be the need of the future is actually going to fuel your transformational strategy, your business success. And in the end, it's also going to talk about what is relevant to the people today. How are we able to use technology? How are we able to use the intelligence to fuel tomorrow is what is going to be the key. Great. Thank you so much, Rajesh, for that. Sudeep, any thoughts here? Anything that you would want to add?
Mute.
Sorry,
Sudeep,
if you're talking, you're on mute.
Sorry. So in my opinion, you see, transformation is something that's going to be there forever, I would say. No, it's not going to stop. It's just that, we need to identify the right time and the right methodology, how to bring about transformation. And, as Rajesh also mentioned, the data analytics versus data analysis, so we need to keep in mind how this technology can help us to identify right solution, provided we have the right problem identified. So identify the right problem, then identify the right solution, and see how technology can help us achieve our business, objectives and the desired outcomes.
So while we are at it, Sudeep, we clearly understood that, while there is this top leadership and there are these people whose lives this is transformation that is actually impacting. The middle layer is where the actual action happens, or they are a key set of people who are going to drive this this transformation. But having said that, how important or how critical is leadership or the top management's support here? What is the role that the leadership actually plays in making this a success?
Well, I think leadership is going to set the tone. I mean, it all starts from the top. And if we have the leadership, I would say displaying right behaviors, right commitment, definitely the middle management layer would be convinced that this transformation is for good. And this is the right intervention, the right time, so that we can survive and grow our business. So today it's a question of survival because we are living in a VUCA world. Now, leadership has to convince the middle layer has to convince the bottom layer. So it has to be basically, it has to percolate down. So we say it's not going to be top down, but somewhere it has to percolate down that this is for the overall good of the organization. And see that people who are skeptical about the change, people are typically not resistant to change, but little skeptical of the change. Their queries and their apprehensions are well attended to. It should be answered. And then we also need to see that, how open and willing people are to adopt new technology. So it would all depend on the nature of industry we are in, so basically we need to do a benchmark, maybe where are we today? What's the skill set? What's the level of digital penetration that organization has seen? So there are certain industries where the digital penetration is very high. So if you talk of IT sector, telecom sector, definitely it's very high. But there are industries where, let's say, if I talk of hospitality industry, so there maybe 70-80% people maybe do not even have an email ID. They do not have access to maybe IT systems, because there are people who are actually working in the front end. They're in the service sector where they don't have access to IT tools. Now, each industry would have its unique proposition. So we need to see that, okay, where we start, where we are today, and where we want to reach. And in case we also need to look at the demographic profile. So if we have a much younger generation, definitely they are much more, let's say, open to adapt to new technology, new solutions, and they want, because it's for their own growth, that they want to have, maybe a faster growth. They want to adopt digital solutions. Whereas if we have people who are into, let's say, 50+ age group, even if you look at the public sector banks, 20 years back or 30 years back, when the digitization happened, public sector banks, there was a lot of resistance where people were not even willing to use emails, or there was a resistance in the railway sector, in the public sector banks. So kind of demographic profile you have and how open they are to, adopt to the technological solution. So I think that that's going to make a difference. And also we need to identify at the same time, if you're bringing in new tools, new processes, what do we do with the legacy tools and processes? So can they coexist, or we need to, do away with those legacy tools and bring in new tools, new processes? So these are some of the, things that we need to keep in mind.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sudeep. Rajesh, I'll jump to you to understand from you that, what are some of the, what is the role that leadership plays when it comes to implementation of the right people tech transformation strategy? Because after all, they have the vision, they know what this can actually do. So what's your take on that?
Thank you. Thank you. Sudeep has said it all from an operating stack. So thanks, Sudeep. I'm going to build you and take you straight into the boardroom now. From a strategy standpoint, there has got to be a clear technology vision that has got to be really drafted and ensured that there is dissemination. So technology vision is absolutely a leadership responsibility. Now, vision is never over unless you actually put the goals behind it.
Yeah.
So you've got to ensure that this vision translates into technological goals, which in turn get translated to scorecards and the KPIs. Number two, the goals are as good as it can be only if it is backed by tangible actions. Now, you've got to get into the operating plan and ensure that the operating plan really backs up this particular goals. And then finally, tracking the results of this entire technology stuff is essential. So again, coming back to vision, goals, action, results completes the entire strategy as far as leadership is concerned. I'll give you simple stuff which leadership could possibly focus on. First and foremost, leadership needs to listen. They often get into too much of talking and too much of preaching. It's very essential that they really understand and listen, number one. And listening is not just internal to the organization, listen to the outside and views as well. And seldom have we seen processes that get built internal to an organization taking a customer view or a stakeholder view. Why not? Who stops you? Supposing I'm sitting in the leadership room as the MD and the CEO of the enterprise, no one stops me from talking to my customer to say, this is my technology ambition, this is my vision, can you give me a view around it? I think that would be possibly the best thing, because the customers are going to tell you directly on your face, they're going to be straight about it. So we never do it. We're shy, or we're possibly less conscious of the fact that, we don't want to be exposing ourselves, but there lies the strength. And this is the responsibility of the leadership. Number two is, I have practiced this and I've done this. Technology to be not looked at as a capability, but why not? And Amit did speak a lot about organizational values and the culture part of, why not make technology a value? Because we see the kind of change that it needs. And when you convert it to a value, it becomes a denominator. It's no more just a capability, or it's no more a skill, but it's something which really imbibes and unites the entire organization together. So technology as a value rather than a capability, number two. Number three is leadership has got to ensure that you really bring in cross-functional teams. Yeah. Technology is not something where, it's been driven only by techies. You've got to get the domain guys, you've got to get the users. And I heard time and again, the belly of the organization, the middle organization, which really is responsible for change, have got to bite into it. You've got to ensure, otherwise, technology, you craft the best of vision and then you leave it to the doers, and somewhere in the middle, nobody understands what's happening. Yeah. That's something which, so cross-functional team, and do not be shy to borrow expertise. When it comes to technology, a leader can be as clear and as binary as whether I know it or I don't know it. There is no shying away from the fact to say that I don't understand this, but can I learn this? And that is where the strength of a reverse mentoring also is very essential. People, particularly organizations, are divided into 4 stacks. Typically there is, and rest of it are all streams. There are influencers, there are decision makers, there are team managers, which is the belly of the organization, and then there are doers. How do you really ensure this entire dissemination to make it happen? And reverse mentoring plays a massive role. And finally, the last one is not just showing agility part of it, but the adaptability part of it also. We will fail 100 times, but the agility to get up again and ensure that we adapt to what is right, what is needed, what is doable, are the stuff that you need to keep going through iteratively many, many times before you really hit. All this is entirely leadership. And so long as the charter is clear, you will get there.
Thank you so much, Rajesh, for so beautifully lining that out for us. Clearly a lot less on the leadership when it comes to transformations, and clearly so. Superb. So some very interesting questions coming up from the audience. We are just going to take that up, but I want to very quickly hop on to Randeep to understand what are the top 3 challenges that you think AI-enabled tech is helping solve for organizational success. And then we are going to come to your questions, audience.
Okay, thank you so much, Nitya, for this question. But beautiful thoughts, RP. Beautiful thoughts, Sandeep and Amit. I was just trying to barge in for the analytics part and just say one thing, that every organization actually goes through its own evolution cycle, right? Whether they hop onto a diagnostic way of analyzing HR data, or looking at a predictive way, and then a prescriptive way, which is a very advanced stage, right? So it is also a function of the evolution as an organization, as an HR function. You are, driving the change and transformation. So that was one part. And of course, I second the thought of RP, that till the time technology doesn't become the value system, you can't achieve transformation, right? Whether it happens through top, it happens through bottom down, middle, whatever you can talk about. I think that's something that I resonate with. Coming on to the question, Nitya, that you asked, I don't see any challenge probably that organizations are trying to solve using AI. See, AI has been a overly convoluted topic of discussion, I think, in the market, right? I say convoluted because I have seen market, I've experienced market, leading Hono as an organization, of course, from operations point of view, and people trying to adopt to AI. Now, any business, if you can think of, would be composed of 3 things or 3 elements, right? One is your product or service, of course, right? Second is the processes within the organization. And third is people, of course, which is very critical element. So for me, it is not a challenge, but of course, an opportunity for organization to look at these 3 perspectives via these 3 lenses and see what is it that we could do transformative when it comes to AI or adoption of AI, right? Because AI is just an overarching definition. There are so many technologies that lie beneath AI, right? Which could be machine learning, which could be cognitive abilities, which could be deep learning. So, and there are n number of terms, right? Which will confuse any organization who would want to embark on transformation. But for me, I come back onto the same thing that I started earlier. What are we trying to solve, okay, which will define the level of transformation that we'll reach to, whether through AI or not through AI, right? But anyways, once upon a time, we thought that email was, too advanced for us, or internet was too advanced for us, but we have to adopt it, right? But so AI is going to become the truth. Now, from these 3 lenses, which I can talk about, which is first is, you talk about your people, you talk about, of course, your processes at the second stage, but fine. I mean, the first part is product and strategy, of what you can think of. So if, for example, we go in a home and we just say, hello, hey, Alexa, right? Now, if that gets imbibed into your product, you're reaching to a new level of product innovation, right? So for me, product, gets the first impact when it comes to overall transformation, which could be also for a service organization, how are you trying to transform services, using AI abilities and ML abilities or deep learning abilities, in the organization. So for example, in Hono, what we do is, we've integrated Alexa and say Google Assistant in our chatbot. So essentially, I could just talk to a chatbot saying, who are the people who are on leave in my team for the next week? Can I apply for a leave or not? Right. So that's your product innovation, right? That's how you build your product on AI. So one needs to reflect what is it, that will really take my product to the next level when I'm infusing, AI into it. And of course, offering that to the market as a business. That's one proposition. right? In terms of services, you could think of, anything, transactional level services, you could think of predicting risks, you could think of, delivering experiences in terms of, services. All that can be enabled through AI. And we have got disruptive technologies, of course, in market available, which could, do this disruption. The second touch point, of course, is, your processes part.
Yeah.
When it comes to machine automation, you talk about cyber security, you talk about so many touch points in processes, you could have a deep impact on that. And you could actually be looking at transforming your entire business, adopting this AI technologies. But the entire point is, of course, it has been spoken a lot, in this webinar is, are we ready to embrace that change? Are we ready for a business, as a business, to be looking at how do we progress forward and adopt to, those AI technologies? You could look at actionable insights as one process change, which, is deeply impacted through ML or probably AI that, you could adopt to. So for me, the key in process is, am I creating a governance or probably a decision-making ecosystem, which is assisted by AI, which could give you some actionable insight as a leader or leader in your capacity at any level to be driving change and transformation in business, right? So that's point number 2 from a process side. And finally, from people side, it's a Pandora box, right? So you could look at, looking at experiences, you could be looking at engagement as another thing that we do beautifully in Hono, wherein we are adopting a lot of ML, and deep learning that we are going through as a product itself, wherein we are able to do some bit of sentiment signatures of whatever gets written in a technology platform, analyze it, and share it with people for whom it really matters, right? And who could take decisions on what could be the action that we could take to be handling such kind of sentiment signature, right? So for me, it is product, services, processes, people that could get impacted, while you're looking at what are the 3 major things or 4 major things that AI could, help businesses on. But these are all, very larger global terms. How an organization needs to pick up what is it's trying to solve in these 3 pockets will determine the level of transformation that, the organization would go through. So that's how I will want to pick up. But it's a deep science. It's an overly convoluted. I mean, some of the organizations, for example, Amazon, in 2017-18, just did away with their artificial intelligence program on recruitment because there were certain biases that they actually detected.
Right.
So still they're not using it, right? So it depends upon what you want to adopt to, what is it that you would want to achieve at the end of it. But yes, certainly AI with the kind of creative augmentation that it could give to any current resource in the organization, has the capacity to lead transformation in and out. That's my
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Randeep. And very clearly, we have a very, very powerful tool at our disposal. How well, how good, how deep we make use of it depends on an organization's reality, is what we clearly see.
Right.
All right. Hopping on to the questions that are flowing in on the chat. Let me start off with the first one. Amit, I'll direct this to you. Sita Babu wants to know that in this great resignation era, how do we justify people transformation?
So people transformation is not because you want to do anything. It's about a business reason. The first and foremost thing is, as a business, is there a need for any kind of a transformation or not? If things are going well, why should I unnecessarily, get into this entire concept of people transformation just because it's a nice thing to do?
Yeah.
So we need to very clearly understand and where is the need, what is the need. The business why has to be very clearly articulated. But if the business why is there, then, as I said earlier, there's never a good time to start, but then you need to start, because otherwise the business will be at a jeopardy, or there will be a question mark about the sustenance of that business going forward. We have enough examples of organizations who have not really transformed because the business reasons fundamentally changed, and where they are now, then some of them don't even exist. Because they didn't go that path. So we should look at what's the talent side of it. We need to look at the business side of it, and that should be the trigger of doing it or not doing it.
Right. And very clearly to add on, I think what we also heard all of you say is that it's not about what the status is now. It is also about trying to understand what the business status could be in future and being able to predict some of the things that could, change the stature in future. So thank you so much, Amit, for that. Sudeep, I will direct this next question from Animesh to you, where he's asking that other than the traditional way of communication, that is email, how can we draw employees' attention to participate in technology and its use in learning and development? So Sudeep wants to know that how we can really ensure that participation through technology in learning and development.
Well, it also mentions about email. So email to me is just a way of communication, which replaces our face-to-face communication or the paper communication. That's a traditional way. When we have other let's say platforms available. So there are a lot of platforms which are there. So you have your own internet, you have your internal, there are systems, and there are various platforms which are there. So you can actually communicate through them. And then in terms of learning and development, it provides you an opportunity where you need platforms where you can actually share your knowledge, you can share your thoughts, you can share your views. And those things may not flow on email. Email is typically 1-to-1 or 1 to maybe 1,000 people, but there should be a repository of knowledge. So it's something to also do with knowledge management, practices in the organization, that how do I share my knowledge, where do I place my knowledge, and how do I exchange my thoughts and ideas. So there are today a lot of technological solutions which are available. We can actually address all these issues, and definitely email is one of them. But then you have SharePoint, and there are so many other solutions which can be implemented by any organization today.
Sure, thank you.
And one way to also do this is that you can always benchmark with your competition. What are they doing? Because today see, each organization has unique something which is unique, which is let's say is their own product, could be their own internal product, or they have bought external, let's say, software external tool. So maybe it's good always to do a benchmark with the market leaders in the industry you are operating, and also with the industries which are in the same growth phase as you are. How are they actually exploiting some of these technologies and tools?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sudeep. In the interest of time, very quickly, Rajesh, I'm going to hop on to you too. Of course, Randeep spoke about this, but I want to understand your thoughts. Is AI a threat to the value of human competencies, is what Manjari wants to understand. Is AI a threat to the value of human competencies?
If you need a 2-second answer, it's no. It's definitely not. It's complementary. It's value accretive. It is additive, but definitely not a threat. The realization could take a little longer, but the sooner you blend, the better it is. I'll leave it at that if you're running short on time.
Thank you, Rajesh. So I hope you got your answer there, Manjari. All right. So Deepesh wants to know that, can you please explain the role of technology in KPIs and KPAs? So anyone who wants to take this, please go ahead. Can you please explain the role of technology in KPIs and KPAs?
I'll take that. Yes. I'll give it in maybe in 3 stacks. At a leadership level, I think the vision part of it that I mentioned is clearly a charter. The what part of it is to stay at the leadership level. Let me get to the middle layer. The middle layer is clearly signing off the business impact. So the outcomes which are there have clearly got to be built. So there can't be a technology KPI unless you get a result and you get a measure out of it. So for example, predictive attrition. So to say that my attrition for the next 3 quarters will be at so-and-so. Today, I guide the markets in terms of my business revenue. I guide the market in terms of my market profitability. Can I guide the market in terms, if I'm a listed company, can I guide the market in terms of my predictive attrition? Why are we not doing? Today, everybody is crying about 20% attrition, 30% attrition. Can you say with a reasonable amount of conviction, I'll bring it down to 15% in the next quarter? That's a guidance.
Right.
That's a KPI. That's an operating KPI. Now you need to work to make it happen because you've already committed to that. Yeah. So that's one part of it. And so similarly, can I improve my show rates from 88% to 95%? So I work on it. So I think it's a reverse mapping. So those are the kind of stuff. And from a doer standpoint, you make it happen. So that's at a doer level. They've got to ensure that actions back that. I think that's how you actually translate a technology vision.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rajesh. Amit, I'll come to you for this. Dipesh wants to know that lots of organizations are using ATS. What are the drawbacks of using ATS is what he wants to understand.
The drawbacks or no drawbacks, I'll not get into that, because a tool is as good as you use it. It's about, do you have a process of following an ATS process, or you still are running a process which is parallel to it through email? So there is no drawback of using any tool. It's about, number one, are you using the tool in the way the tool is supposed to be implemented? Number one. And then, have we really communicated the benefit of using that tool to everybody very clearly, and hence people are using it? Because I have seen it happening in ATS that apart from the CVs being pushed through ATS, there is a separate email channel also which goes, and then the feedback session is being taken, and then there is the two parallel processes continue to happen. Yeah. So make it very clear, use the tool, then use the tool, and then let's kind of follow that process, but don't create multiple processes. Then you'll have a drawback there, because then you'll say, okay, what's the fun of doing this? So it's as good as you make use of it. Is my one line answer if you to take that.
Yeah, just to add to this is that, as you said very rightly, Amit, it's a reflection of processes that you build into ATS. But the beauty of it is, there is one drawback with ATS, right? If you don't build it right, you're not going to get any sense out of the data that you're building in ATS, right? So it comes back onto the same point, reflecting on what Amit said. Are we clear on what are we building in terms of our ATS and what it feeds into my analytical layer for me to be giving that funneling, to be giving the kind of TAT that is being used or being monitored in the overall ATS system is something that becomes very important. So the end result of what you want to achieve through ATS is something that needs to be bought in right in the beginning when you're configuring ATS. That's the biggest drawback. We only see putting the ticks in place and then configuring ATS, but it's about the end state, right? So that's my 2 cents on this.
Thank you so much, Randeep. And with that, we come to the end of this wonderful session. Very quickly summarizing some extremely interesting thoughts and inputs that came our way. Clearly, we spoke about how people are going to be the center of any transformational exercise, and how in order to make any transformation work, it's important to be very clear about the purpose, the relevance, and how the vision behind it, and then plan the course of action in terms of translating into operational goals, and then focusing on actually implementing the strategy. Top leadership has a huge responsibility, so does the organization at large, to make this transformation work. So this is going to be a journey for the entire organization and not for a segment alone. Thank you so very much, gentlemen, on that thought for joining us this evening and sharing your insights. Thank you, audience, for your questions and your active participation. And here's us signing off. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.